Okay, so I'm going to do a quick little tutorial here about soldering your own terminal joiners. And one of the things I want to mention first off is buy yourself one of these little get-ups they have for soldering things. I got this at Radio Shack. I've seen them at some discount hardware stores. I was doing this by hand, holding one of these joiners in a pair of pliers while I was soldering it, and you can do it. Goes by real slow. For the 20 bucks that this costs, it's really worth it. Now, rail joiners cost, terminal rail joiners around our local hobby shops are about 10 bucks a piece. And I don't really want to pay that much for something that I can make myself pretty easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I go about doing that. I'm going to solder a red wire and a black wire onto these two terminals. First thing here, again, another tool you want to buy, invest in the wire stripper. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to strip red wire and the black wire. And this is actually old telephone cable that I've stripped out the, removed the individual strands in, or the individual conductors rather. And I've got red wires, black wires, green wires, white wires, blue wires, and all sorts of other wires, but red and black is what I'm using for the terminals here, so I can do positive, negative, and kind of keep track of how I have things done. And for the layout that I'm building, I'm going to have 16 sets of terminal joiners. I am doing common rail wiring, as I discussed in that video when I decided how I'm going to lay this out. I didn't really intend to do common rail, but it'll be ready to go for for other purposes later here. So let's, if I want to go to DCC or something like that here. So let's come here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tin these wires. And I have my solder here, soldering iron. This is lead-free solder from Radio Shack. I remember the old days when everything had lead in it. Make sure it's rosin core. That way you don't have to keep putting flux on your wires. Do not use acid flux to use in plumbing. That'll corrode your joints, so you can't reuse plumbing solder. This stuff works great, and avoid something called silver-bearing solder. That's for doing soldering onto circuit boards, something that I'm not really going to get in here. So I actually tin the end of my soldering iron first. That's not metal vapor. That's the rosin inside melting. But I tin this wire. I just have a really light coat of solder on that wire there. And I'm going to do this again for this wire right here. And the other thing, I don't know if you can see, I'm not really melting this on. I'm heating the wire. Yeah, the soldering iron just around. I'm touching it. I'm actually touching the wire to the solder. As you can see there, it sticks. And I pull the soldering iron away. So that gives a little bit of solder on the end of that wire. And now I'm going to tin. It's called tinning. The ends are here. Now some people will put their terminals right on the rail. And I don't like doing that because a little bit of too much there. I don't like doing that because with N scale especially, you don't have a lot of room to get that wire right on that rail. So I like to do it right on a joiner, rail joiner. Okay, again, a little bit of a big blob there, but I'll tell you how to deal with that. And we'll let that cool off for a second, because I'm gonna, if my clamp moved, then I'm gonna. Remember, safety first. This is really hot. I know it cools off pretty quick. I have asbestos hands because I worked as a machinist for so long, but don't want to burn ourselves, especially with the tip of this iron. It is very hot. So I'm going to come in here and just hold this here, and I'm going to come down and touch that there. Again, basically now we're just melting the two soldered pieces together. There we go. Hold them there till they melt. Now, I don't really like how that protrudes so far past the end there. So I'll just come with my wire cutter and trim that off. And I make sure no solder landed in the groove on the top where the rails fit in there. So I'll make sure that looks good. This one here, I'm a little worried about. Nope, don't have any solder where I don't want it. I'll come down here, just trim that off maybe a little bit. Looks good. So there's my homemade terminal rail joiners. Made it for a lot cheaper than $10 a piece. I think I paid $1 for 100 feet of telephone wire from our local discount chain, Ocean State Job Lot here in New England. And I think I paid about $3 for a couple dozen couple dozen rail joiners off the internet. And I'm soldering them up. It's real simple. It gets moving smooth along here, and I actually just made this set here just for you. And I'm going to do another video, or probably just add to this video, some soldering some electronic components. Alright, thank you very much.